The Bouncer is a 2000 RPG beat-em-up game that was developed by Squaresoft and Dream Factory and released in Japan back in December of 2000. Before the game was released, it was surrounded by hype, but many of the reviews out there suggest this game couldn't live up to it. The story of the Bouncer is a rather simplistic story at first glance. Evil corporation kidnaps your girlfriend, your friends and you team up to save her, and along the way save the world from a megalomaniacal dictator. The usual fare for an old-school RPG, to be honest, to some extent. The only real twist is that there are a few story differences at times depending on which character you assume direct control over during the various fight scenes. These decisions also affect whose past will get revealed to you during the loading screens as well, but I tend to find the loading screens a double-edged sword. On one hand, they allow the player to learn more about the character and their motivations, but at the same time, most of the loading screens are so short, you'll be hard-pressed to finish reading the text on the screen before it disappears. The Bouncer is one of the games that I feel like has moved games in the wrong direction to some extent. While the game is a visual and audio masterpiece, its gameplay is just lacking. In some regards, this is probably because the game feels like it wants to be a movie more than a game. And this is never a good thing in my opinion. A game is an interactive experience, while a movie is a passive experience. I should never feel like I'm watching the story unfold through cutscenes more than I'm playing the game itself. And in the case of the Bouncer, you'll usually be watching 5-minute cutscenes plus, interspersed with fight scenes that are usually a minute or two in length at most. And it is hard for me to ignore that problem with story mode since you can't unlock additional characters for the other modes of play or enhance their abilities unless you play through story mode multiple times in order to acquire the Bouncer points you'll need to unlock their special techniques and stat boost, which is an aspect of this game that leaves me with rather mixed feelings strangely. On one hand, I like the concept of Bouncer points, since it gives the game the feel of an RPG, but on the other hand, it forces you to choose between unlocking your stats first or your moves first. I'd also argue that it's highly annoying that points can only be earned by the character that lands the finishing blow, and only the character is under the control of the player. That aspect of the system is undeniably frustrating, since it forces the player to complete story mode numerous times in order to unlock everything. Another issue to add to the growing list of problems with this title is the lack of camera controls. And while some games like Genji Dawn of the Samurai can sort of skirt around this issue to some extent, the Bouncer isn't as fortunate. The lack of effective camera controls can allow the AI to blindside the player by launching an attack from off-screen, or hinder the player's ability to keep track of an enemy's position or movement after engaging them. The only real bright side this game has, in my opinion, are the controls themselves, which offer a simplistic but effective combat system that doesn't have lengthy combat inputs in order to execute special attacks. Albeit the need to unlock the special attacks is a bit of a downer in my opinion.
Ready, fight!
Ultimately, I don't think the Bouncer is that bad of a game, but it isn't anything truly amazing either. So unless you're a die-hard fan of everything Square, I don't know if it's really worth picking up at this point in time. I'd argue it's sort of a movie more than a game, so it doesn't have that much appeal unless you're a die-hard fan of beat-em-up games, I guess.